CHAMPS Live is presented by Lawrence Technological University, where Blue Devils dare, Hungry Howie's, famous for flavor, and the Detroit Medical Center. Do you have a sports injury or are just looking to take your game to the next level? Go where the pros go. Visit dmc.org/gamechangers.
Hey everyone, welcome to National Be a Millionaire Day, where we all can celebrate the idea of being a millionaire. Well, we have a bountiful of riches on today's program because we were able to connect with TJ Kelley. Now, you're not going to see him today, but you will hear him. So we have not just one guest, but two. Our second straight show talking boys hoops. Welcome to episode 36 of State Champs Live, presented by Lawrence Tech. With over 100 degree programs, including graduate and doctoral, offered at LTU, their one common theme is the focus on theory and practice, the art of learning through classroom and hands-on training. In a world where everyone and everything is digitally connected like never before, the graduates who will be valued most are those who can think critically and communicate effectively. Lawrence Tech's media communication program has been specifically designed to address these requirements. A degree in media communications prepares students to be cross-trained in journalism, broadcasting, production, and public relations. For more information on the degree programs offered at LTU, head over to their website, ltu.edu. We are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. My name is Lauren Plant, and today we are wrapping up our conversation talking the top 10 boys basketball state championship teams in the state champs era. But first, here are the headlines for Wednesday, May 20th.
CMU runs away from track and field. Central Michigan University announced Tuesday it was among those schools cutting sports in a cost-saving measure, eliminating the men's track and field team. The school said the scholarships for the 36 current athletes will be honored and that any who want to transfer to another school will be released immediately. Athletic Director Michael Alford also said the school had applied for a waiver to the rule which requires Football Bowl Series, more commonly known as FBS schools, to maintain teams in 16 sports, including 6 for men. The NFHS sends guidelines. The National Federation of State High School Associations sent a set of guidelines to state associations to recommend phases for reopening high school athletics during the coronavirus pandemic. But ultimately, the decisions on timelines will be up to each individual association and the individual state governmental authorities. The guidelines recommended that state or local guidelines for cloth face coverings should be strictly followed, and laid out 3 phases for each reopening, while also breaking sports down into 3 risk categories: higher, moderate, and lower. We'll have more on this story as it develops. State of emergency in Michigan. High schools that have been closed since mid-March were reopened as shelters on Tuesday as the failures of 2 mid-Michigan dams on the Tittabawassee River have forced residents in Gladwin and Midland counties to seek shelter at Midland, Bullock Creek, Coleman, and Freeland high schools. This following the governor's state of emergency declaration. Floodwaters in Midland are expected to crest near 38 feet, nearly 4 feet higher than the devastating 1986 flood.
Wow, that's just a terrible story. We're rooting for everybody out there in mid-Michigan. Those are the headlines. So let's get to today's Hungry Howie's Twitter question of the day. And it is, have you joined TikTok yet? Of course. No, but I will soon. No, and I probably won't. Or what is TikTok? If you don't know that, then you've been certainly living under a rock. All right, it's Hang Time Wednesday here on Live. Good to have the full Hang Time crew with me today. At least one here physically, one, as you can see, just a bright, smiling face, but you will hear his comments on the teams that we are discussing, which is teams in the top 25 boys basketball state championship teams in the state champs era. We're talking the years from 2003 to 2019. Now, yesterday, we went over some squads representing teams ranked 25 to 11. Today, we're talking the top 10. As you will see on your screen, we have both of Scott's and TJ's top 10 rankings. Now, we only have time to discuss 5 of them, but there are several that cross lists. So, Scott, it is great to have you back. And TJ, I am glad we can at least hear you.
Yep.
Okay. And Scotty is here as well. So, all right. Well, first up, there you go. All right. First up, the Cassius Winston era at UD Jesuit, the 2016 Class A state champs. Scott, you had them ranked 3rd. TJ, you had them at 10. We'll start with you, TJ. They made your top 10, but barely.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talent in that era, and if you look at some of the players that went on to be Big Ten Player of the Year, and a lot of the success, I think that it's a bright light to be in the top 10 of the state champs era since 2003. Obviously, you had Cassius Winston, who is all world. Hopefully, we'll see his name drafted, in the near future in the NBA. But then you also have guys like Elijah Collins, who are playing football with Michigan State. You've got Scott Nelson, who's at Wisconsin, and then can't forget the Twin Towers, Greg and Eke, who are 6'8", 6'9", went on to Illinois and Marquette. Greg is now at Northeastern, but yeah, what a great time to watch basketball, and great to see Cassius wind up winning the state championship as well.
Absolutely. And Scott, you really like this team because you had them highly ranked.
Yeah, they were a symphony of synchronization, a lot of 24-karat gold on that roster. Obviously, you got Cassius, one of the greatest point guards to ever play in the MHSAA. The two bigs, the Nigerians that we had to wait a year to see, but then we saw them 3 straight seasons of really special play in the post. But I think the two X factors on this team were the football guys. Elijah Collins, who's playing at Michigan State right now. Actually, I think he might be in the transfer portal, but he was at Michigan State. And then Scotty Nelson, the 6th man, one of the best 6 men to ever come out of the Catholic League. Just a spark plug off the bench. He's a safety at Wisconsin, and a guy that just would come off, give you instant offense from the 3-point line, and give you some great defense, great leadership. This was the end of the Cassius Winston era, where they had won 4 straight Catholic League championships. They finished that, they finished with 7 straight before last season when St. Mary's took the crown. But just right. Pat Donnelly, great job, and a team that will always be remembered in the annals of the MHSAA.
All right, next, the Draymond Green era at Saginaw, the 2007 Class A state champs. TJ, you ranked them 2nd. Scott, you had them at number 4. Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, what else you need to say? Draymond Green, Daniel West, Mike Green, just a terrorizing 3-headed monster. Mike Green and Daniel West had great Final Fours. They were in the backcourt. Draymond Green, probably the best point forward to ever play in the MHSAA, laid the groundwork, laid the foundation for what you saw from him at Michigan State, and then now in the pros, could be a future Hall of Fame. He's got those 3 rings with the Golden State Warriors, and it all kind of flowed through him. That offense flowed through him at the top of the key, just showing, just the jack of all trades, a guy that could do it all, a winner, the definition of a winner. But he couldn't have done it without Mike Green and Daniel West. So that was that team repeated, and again, you just kind of got to see you got a vision of things to come with what you were going to have from day.
TJ, you thought very highly of this group, had them ranked 2nd on your list.
Yeah, they would have been number 1 if it wasn't for Dar Tucker and Saginaw Arthur Hill in the Saginaw rivalry. That was one of the tops in the country. Almost 15 years ago, with Saginaw Arthur Hill winning in 2006, and then back-to-backs with Saginaw in 2007 and 8. Just so much talent, so much size. Deontay Wesley and Josh Southern, you're talking about 2 guys that are 6'9", 6'10", and 250, 260 pounds. I think that's just way too much for a lot of teams to handle. Everybody, one team, obviously, you've got Draymond Green, that is, had a fantastic career. I think he should have won Mr. Basketball as well, but we all know the story there. But don't forget about the guard play with Daniel West and Mike Green, that Scott was talking about. the key to me on this team, where I had to put them a little bit higher than the other teams, was Bobby Lewis. I think that you need a defensive stopper. He went down to Jackson State and then finished up at Northwood. But you talk about a kid that's 6'4", versatile, able to defend multiple positions, and that was a fantastic team. And hats off to Lou Dawkins for back-to-back state championships.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move to the Ray McCallum years at Detroit Country Day, 2010 Class B champs. We had some consensus here. Scott, you ranked them the 7th best championship team in the state champs era. TJ, you also had them at 7. We'll start with you, TJ. What say you about this version of the Yellow Jackets?
Wow, I think Ray McCallum was on a mission for that championship year. They were fantastic. They wound up beating Pershing, I think at Lansing Eastern midway through the season. But you talk about a McDonald's All-American who had a cup of tea in the NBA. Just to kind of put in reference, this Country Day team beat Lansing Sexton prior to their back-to-back championships.
Right.
And beat them back.
24 points. I'm looking at the score now, 71-47. And I think that that's just a dominance. And I also think that this team helped make Lansing Sexton what they would become in the near future.
Well, there you go. How about you, Scott?
Well, Ray McCallum, one of the most exciting players ever to come out of Oakland County, came in from Indiana after his sophomore year and just really dominated for his junior and senior season. But you had Ray McCallum, but you also had another McDonald's All-American on that team, and Amir Williams. So 2 McDonald's All-Americans on that team makes it a pretty special group. But you can't forget about Air India, Mahesh Umansakar, the 3-point specialist who let it fly from beyond the arc. You had Lee Bailey, Kenny Knight, guys that would go on to play college sports. You had a transfer from Europe who came off the bench, and Adam Zavadel. Just a very well-rounded group. And, Chris Fowler, who ended up being a star at Central Michigan, got hurt, I think, halfway through the season. So, he would have been on that, Breslin Center floor as well if he hadn't have been injured, and the team would have been even more of a juggernaut than it already was.
Absolutely. Hey, if you have any questions or comments for Scott or TJ on our top 10 rankings, now's the time to ask on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's talk Lansing Sexton. You've already brought it up. Both of you have ranked in your top 10 the 2011 and 2012 teams who both won Class B. TJ, you ranked the 2011 team 8th. And the 2012 team 3rd. Scott, you had the 2011 team 5th, and the 2012 team your number 1 team. What catapulted them to the top of your list, Scott?
Just insane balance. Maybe, outside of Jalen Rose and Vashawn Leonard with those Southwestern teams, maybe the best backcourt in the history of the state in Denzel Valentine and Bryn Forbes. But you also had Anthony Clemens, who went and played in the Big Ten at Iowa. You had Jalen Hayes, who played at OU. You had Trevor Manuel as a freshman. So that was a team that just really could do it all. A team that had that X factor in terms of intestinal fortitude, in terms of just being tireless competitors. But when you got the kind of firepower in the backcourt of 2 future NBA players, 2 guys that weren't just having a cup of coffee in the NBA, but guys that will have long careers in the league, and Denzel and Bryn, I don't know, in terms of the state champs era, can really up against them.
Yeah, TJ, both teams were great. Both of you liked the 2012 version just a little bit better.
Hey, I'll tell you what, that Lansing Sexton team is one of my favorite teams. Carlton Valentine did a fantastic job. In only a few years, he was able to change that around. Obviously, having his sons play at Lansing Sexton was huge. I mean, they put a 35-point beatdown on Stevensville Lakeshore. And let's say this, the halftime score was 32-10.
Right, I remember.
I mean, I'm like, just to put things in perspective, they had so much size, and on that 2012 class, all those juniors are now seniors, and then you get to add in a kid that's 6'8" and skilled, and Trevor Manuel, who wound up playing at Oakland University and then finishing out at Olivet. But yeah, so many players on that team that wound up having tons of success in college. And then you talk about, obviously, as Scott pointed out, you got two guys that are having more than a cup of tea in the NBA. I would have loved to have them higher, but that lone blemish that they had mid-season, I want to say that they lost to Everett. Which was a strong rivalry game, but
right.
I think that that is the reason why I have that team number 3. But yeah, I tell you what, man, if you were to have Lansing Sexton play Saginaw, or some of these other teams on that, I tell you what, they're going to be 3 out of 5, and I wouldn't like to be a betting man on either side.
I got you. All right, our final team to comment on today takes us back to 2004. This was early in the state champs era, the Class B state champs Detroit Renaissance. I remember in particular Cobo Arena for the PSL championship. That was an electric atmosphere. It was unbelievable. Scott, you ranked them number 2 on your list. TJ, you had them number 1. Why?
Well, for me, two McDonald's All-Americans, Malik Harrison and Joe Crawford. They also had Marcus Stout, who is in the Hall of Fame at Fordham as a top 10 scorer all time for them. Carson Butler wound up playing for the Detroit Lions, anchor in the middle at 6'7", and a ton of size, just bringing athleticism and a lot of strength. Tawan Porter, just a youngster back then. Went on to have a phenomenal career at Oregon. And then they had, Adam Sabri was a more than a quality role player. And then you have Mark White, who has had tons of success in the early 2000s with Renaissance. And yeah, to me, undefeated. What they did to Detroit Denby in the PSL championship in front of a packed house at Cobo, the last time that's happened,
right?
Was just amazing, and they just had too much on the high school level. Obviously, some of these guys didn't have as much success as the backcourt of Sexton or with Saginaw and Draymond Green. But you talk about on the high school level, these guys were. Joe Crawford is 6'3", 6'4", 200 pounds. There's just not a lot of guards that can handle that. Malik Hairston, at 6'7", 6'6", being able to do what he could do out on the wing, that was tough. But they were very well balanced, able to shoot the ball, and could hurt you in many different ways.
Absolutely. Your thoughts, Scott?
The term lit didn't really exist back in the early 2000s, but this team was lit like a Christmas tree, man. This team had so much swagger. I loved watching them play, just dynamic playmaking across the lineup. In terms of a 1-2 punch, Joe Crawford and Malik Harrison can go head-to-head with any players that have ever come out of the PSL. Tawan Porter and Malik Harrison, one of the things that I think about with this team is how the local colleges, Michigan State, really missed out on Malik Harrison and Tawan Porter. They let those guys go out to the Pac. I think it might have been the Pac-10 at the time, but the Pac-12, and they took Oregon to an Elite 8. I think they were really close to going to the Final Four under Ernie Kent. And those were two guys that were right under the nose of Michigan State, and I think they kind of were a little bit marginalized in terms of the recruiting. Joe Crawford went to Kentucky. And as TJ said, really the straw that kind of stirred that drink was Marcus Stout, the point guard, who had a great career in the Patriot League at Fordham. I remember, I think it was that Cobo Hall game. I'll end my diatribe on this. I remember after that game, there was like a 12 or 13-year-old kid that was a Renaissance fan that was on the floor. And I kind of got a look at this, and Mark White was so excited. He might have been his son. I don't know. And he grabbed him and he said, "You want some more of this? Because it's coming, baby. It's coming. We're going to the tournament. We're going to win the whole thing."
Yeah, exactly. He was quite exuberant, and it was fun to follow that team, watch that team. All right, we're going to be getting your questions or comments next for the Hang Time Boys. Ask away right now on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. But first, let's check out what happened this week in state champs history.
We go to the Catholic League CD Baseball Championship from a decade ago at Comerica Park. Ann Arbor father Gabriel Richard meeting Madison Heights Bishop Foley. This was a pitcher's duel. Richard ace Chris Ostrowski had 14 strikeouts, and the game went into extra innings tied at 0. Bottom of the 8th, Irish threatening, but Foley Jr. pitcher Jeff Schultz gets the inning-ending K. He had 13 strikeouts. But in the bottom of the 9th, Nolan Braymeyer coming through a walk-off base hit as Richard wins the CD crown. The Irish won 43 games that year, got all the way to the D3 state title game before losing to Shepherd. This week in State Champs history is presented by Lawrence Tech Athletics. Recruit yourself at ltuathletics.com.
All right, we're running long here, but I did have one question that came from YouTube that I want to ask both you guys real quick. So just give me kind of 10 seconds on each. Who were some of the bubble teams that just missed making your top 25? Scott, you start.
Well, my first bubble team was Detroit Rogers, one of the best Class D teams to ever play. I think that 2005 Rogers team had four or five Division I kids. I think I pushed Rogers into a tie at 25 after I originally put my list out, but they were my first cut.
Yeah, they were great. How about you, TJ?
Oh, wow. It's a tough decision. Let's say this. I was a big fan of the Saginaw Arthur Hill team with Dart Tucker. I think that, with just what he brought to, he's just pretty much an unguardable player in high school. The last team to win, I love to bring it up, in the 2000, let's say this is the last team to win with a player that was shorter than 6'6", and a bunch of toughness. And Greg McMath was really getting it done at Arthur Hill back then.
I agree. All right, I want to thank both of
I'll
these guys
throw in
for
the
the
2013 Country Day with Edmund Sumner.
Okay, that's a good one too. All right. I again want to thank both these guys for the work they put in compiling these lists. It takes a lot of time. Good luck to both of you. We'll do it again soon. Thanks, fellas.
All right, thank you.
Guys.
All right, let's look at today's clip of the day.
And that's your clip of the day.
All right, a real nice salute to the Utica seniors there. Dig it. We want your short video clip to be today's clip of the day. Send us a link on any of our social media platforms. We'll check it out. Hey, concussions are serious business. Good thing we had the DMC sports medicine team on our side. Check out this brief DMC Game Changers clip.
Did you know that people that had a concussion are more likely to have an ankle or knee injury after that concussion, and actually up to 2 years after your concussion? So here's a vestibular test that you should have before you return to sport. So if you've had a concussion, come to the DMC to have a vestibular test done to see if you're ready to return to sport.
All right, you can check out all the DMC Game Changers segments on any of our platforms. All right, let's check out the results of yesterday's Hungry Howie's Twitter question of the day. We asked about those of you who had to take the AP biology exam. Was it a beast? That's what we heard, but 45% of you did not take it. So not a lot of scholars following the show. I'm kidding. Join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. That woman that you just saw participating in the Game Changers segment will be our guest. She is one of the DMC Game Changers crew. She is an athletic trainer. Her name is Jennifer Burnham, and we're going to discuss how you can turn your love of sport into a career as an athletic trainer. She was a Northern Michigan girl, great volleyball player in her own right. We'll talk to her tomorrow. And if you know of a guest or a topic we should talk to or about here on live, please email our show coordinator, Amanda. Her email, amanda@yellowflagproductions.com. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Right now, we are all longing for the roar of a crowd, the excitement of a stadium filled with cheering fans, and the ecstasy of celebrating a hard-fought victory. But right now, we're all on the same team, and we must do our part to make sure as many students, athletes, coaches, teachers, parents, and loved ones are there when we have the luxury to resume our rivalries and start rooting for our teams once again. Stay home and stay safe.
State Champs Live is presented by Lawrence Technological University, where Blue Devils dare, Hungry Howie's, famous for flavor, and the Detroit Medical Center. Do you have a sports injury or are just looking to take your game to the next level? Go where the pros go. Visit dmc.org/gamechanger.